Good morning. It is February 25th, and this is That Exciting Dude with Snap Podcast. Alrighty, it has been a while for me. Yesterday there was some slurring, some mumbling. So as I get back into the groove, hopefully getting in a very regular routine of getting back in the groove. I can't promise an everyday situation that I'll be doing this, but definitely I want to get back into doing this, whether it's old news or new news to you. Just something great to talk about, something different to listen to. It's a very short podcast since I'm not belonged or subscribed to the provider. So that's why I only have a max of 15 minutes. I do plan on buying the next package up, but in the meantime, I'm just going to roll with the 15 minutes. It's a quick and easy podcast to get you through the morning, whether you're at work, on the way to work, or just want to listen in general. All right, with my NBA very unorganized orthodox yesterday, I'm not going to lie, I made a cheat sheet for myself as far as knowing where the teams are. I knew that was going to be a disaster the minute I started trying to do that. I do know that I definitely had some wrong cities with the teams. But without further ado, we are going to start with the scores from yesterday night's NBA action. All right, starting out, we have the Warriors versus the Pacers. The Warriors won 111-107. Next game up was the Celtics versus the Hawks. The Hawks won by a score of 127-112. Rockets versus the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers defeated the Rockets with a score of 112-96. Raptors versus the Heat. And the Heat defeated the Raptors by a score of 116-108. Timberwolves versus the Bulls. This is actually an overtime game. The Bulls defeated the Timberwolves by a score of 133 points to the 126 that the Timberwolves got. All right, next on to my Detroit Pistons. That is going with the common theme of Detroit teams, which is they're not doing good. We got the Pelicans versus the Pistons, and the Pelicans defeated the Pistons by a score of 128-118. Next game up is the Spurs versus the Thunder, and the Thunder defeated the Spurs by a score of 102-99. All right, next up we have the Hornets versus the Suns. And the Hornets defeated the Suns by a score of 124-121. And the final game of the night was the Lakers versus the Jazz. And the Jazz defeated the Lakers by a score of 114-89. All right, to keep things coinciding with each other and working with each other, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into tomorrow's action or today's action, February 25th games. Again, all of my times are Eastern Standard Time. So the Mavericks are playing the 76ers at 7 p.m. Magic versus the Nets at 7:30 p.m. The Kings versus the Knicks at 7:30 p.m. The Clippers versus the Grizzlies at 8 p.m. The Wizards versus the Nuggets at 9 p.m. And the last game of the night is the Pelicans versus the Bucks at 9:30 p.m. Now, I told you that I do have my cheat sheet as far as looking at where the teams are located. For instance, the Bucks are at, and I know this is old news to you, and of course I can't find them on my list. Now I'm playing, I knew it was Milwaukee Bucks. So I was correct with that one. I know I was. Pelicans. I have no idea where the Pelicans are. So that one I definitely need. Alright, the New Orleans Pelicans. But I'm going to slowly reference it to start learning where the NBA teams are. Because like I told you in the beginning, is I am not an NBA person at all. Alright, moving on from the NBA, we're going to go to last night's games for the NHL. We're going to start out with the first game of the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the Tampa Bay Lightning defeated the Carolina Hurricanes of a score of 3-0. Alright, next up is the Dallas Stars versus the Florida Panthers. And the Dallas Stars defeated the Panthers by a score of 3-0. Next up is the Philadelphia Flyers versus the New York Rangers. And the Philadelphia Flyers defeated the Rangers by a score of 4-3. Next up, and it was a final overtime game, the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Calgary Flames. And the Maple Leafs won by a score of 2-1. Another game that went into overtime and into a shutout was the Anaheim Ducks versus the Phoenix Coyotes. And the Coyotes won by a score of 4-3. Alright, next game is the Minnesota Wild versus the Colorado Avalanche. I felt like this game was going to be a little closer than what the score is. And that is the Wild won by a score of 6-2. And the final game of the night was the Los Angeles Kings versus the St. Louis Blues. And the Los Angeles Kings won by a score of 2-1. Alright, continuing in with the hockey, we're going to go into the Thursday evening games. Once again, not to be a broken record, all times are in Eastern Standard Time. At 7 p.m., we have the Boston Bruins taking on the New York Islanders. Also at 7 p.m., we have the Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the Washington Capitals. Hold on one second while I look ahead. Alright. When I reveal a new time, that's when the time has changed. But if I don't tell a time, then it's the previous time before. I'm only saying that because as I look ahead, I see there's a lot of 7 p.m. games. Alright, so again, continuing on after the Penguins Capitals. Also at 7 p.m., we have the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. We have the Dallas Stars versus the Panthers. We have the Chicago Blackhawks versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. And we have the Calgary Flames versus the Ottawa Senators. And the last game for the 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time slot is the New Jersey Devils versus the Buffalo Sabres. Alright, the only slot in the 7:30 p.m. zone is the Nashville Predators versus my sinking Red Wings, Detroit Red Wings. Next up for the only game at 8 p.m. is the Montreal Canadiens versus the Winnipeg Jets. And the last and final game is at 10 p.m. And that is the Edmonton Oilers versus the Vancouver Canucks. The two games that are postponed due to probably COVID-related issues is the Avalanche versus the Coyotes and the Golden Knights versus the Sharks. Alrighty, so moving on, I'm going to do predictions for NHL. I realized I did do predictions for the NBA and I believe the NHL, and I have not gone back. And I did not even write them down to be like, oh yeah, I have this one. So let me find a piece of paper here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through this quickly and hastily right now. Alright, back to the top. Bruins versus Islanders. I'm going to go with the Bruins. Penguins versus Capitals. I'm going to go with the Penguins. Stars versus the Panthers. I'm going to go with the Panthers. Blackhawks versus the Blue Jackets. You know what? I'm going to go with the Blue Jackets. Calgary Flames versus the Ottawa Senators. I'm going to have to go with the Flames. New Jersey Devils versus the Sabres. We are going to go... that's a tough one. I haven't watched anything. I'm going to go New Jersey. Predators versus my Wings. As much as I feel like it's a Predator win, I'm going to have to go for my Red Wings for a little upset. I think they've lost the last several games, so they're due for a win, whether they deserve it or not. Canadiens versus the Jets. I'm going to go with the Jets. And then the last game is the Oilers versus the Canucks, and I'm going to go with the Oilers. Alright, let's see, looking at the time left, looks like no time for any news, any action. I know there's more talks and more feedback from the whole Tiger Woods accident. I know they cleared up a lot of things, like I guess he wasn't under the influence. It looks like there was no braking as he went into the ravine. So I know there's still probably more questions that need to be answered, but I know a lot were cleared up as far as the accident with golf legend Tiger Woods. And I guess the other one that was revealed was, I guess there was fractures in both legs. So he's basically has to learn to walk, is from what I understand. And the way that I understood the article that I read. Alright, this is That Exciting Dude with Snap Podcast. Stay classy, and I'll see you next time.